Hey, it's Sela Social Studies.
Hey guys, welcome back to Sela Social Studies. All right, so we covered the smallest, which is the Mecklenburg Resolve. That was the smallest call for independence. Then the second smallest, or second largest, if you're a half full type person, the Halifax Resolves. And now we're going to get to the largest call for independence, and that would be the Declaration of Independence. So in the 18th century, the British colonists wanted independence. Independence was so important to the British colonies that Thomas Jefferson wrote the Declaration of Independence of 1776, which was signed by representatives of all 13 colonies. It was a document intended to free the colonists from the British ruler King George III, whose leadership was very abusive. Now, the Declaration of Independence was a short document, and it listed the reasons for seeking independence as well as the charges against the king. The colonists wanted to overthrow the current monarchical government. Independence to British people in America meant that they wanted to govern themselves without interference from the King of Britain. One of the most famous lines written in history summed up what the people of the colonies wanted. It's included in the preamble, which is information about why the document was written, and it's included in the preamble of the Declaration of Independence. And it states, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." Now, something about the Declaration of Independence that is argued quite frequently is, what did they mean by all men, right? Who was all men? Are women included in all men? Were the slaves included in all men? That's up for discussion, and we'll discuss that type of stuff during class. The citizens wanted nothing less than what most people want throughout the world today. The colonists stressed that all people are created equal, and that the way that King George was governing them was not fair and it was not right. That single line that states that every person is created the same way and have the rights that are evident or obvious even at birth. The rights are summed up as life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The government's job is to make sure that those rights are available to all people. King George was stepping all over those rights. And the Declaration of Independence was not only declared independence from Britain, it also summarized, like I said, all of those abuses by the king, which included interference with the colonists who have wanted to have their own government. The king would not allow the people to run their own lives in towns. He was charging the taxes on the colonists without cause or reason. Taxes were being paid by the colonists, but they were not receiving anything in return. Remember, right? Taxation without representation. The colonists or the British subjects in England were not paying these taxes, but the British colonists in America were. He also took away their right to have a trial by jury. When people were accused of committing a crime, there was just a single person who decided their guilt or innocence. The king did not allow people to be tried by a jury, which includes its own citizens in the same town as the accused. They were also not permitted to trade freely. If the colonists wanted to trade with other countries or colonies, they had to get special permission from the king. People could not sell their products or crops from their farms to others whenever they wanted. So remember, the government that was in place of the colonies was, I called it a puppet government before, but it wasn't a puppet government. It was a government that was kind of, the king just allowed it to happen. They weren't really self-governing themselves. They were kind of just taking care of themselves under the king's control. So in addition, the destruction of American life and property took place because the king was not protecting the people or the borders of the colonies. American ships were seized and captured at sea, and people acting as soldiers called mercenaries who were hired by King George to fight against the colonists. The governments of the colonies even tried to make peaceful agreements with Great Britain, but they were ignored by King George and the other rulers of Britain. The Declaration of Independence is to be considered the founding document of American history and is included as one of the most important documents, along with the Bill of Rights and the Constitution, that have ever been written. The colonists wanted a new nation and did not want to be connected to Great Britain. So on July 4th, 1776, the United States of America became a country, eventually creating its own government under the Articles of Confederation, later to be changed to the Constitution.